Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining. Thank you for joining this second webinar of the Business Platforms for Sustainability on the platform of the Curacao Chamber of Commerce. My name is 𝗲𝗵𝗏𝟏. I'm the president of the Business Platform for Sustainability. Many of you may know it as 𝗴𝗿𝗲𝗏𝗏 𝗵𝗿𝗏, but we're trying to move away and change the name a little bit. And I will be your host for today. Today, we also have with us two speakers, 𝗄𝗵𝗿𝗏𝗏𝗏 from 𝗂𝗵𝗃𝗃𝗏 and 𝗵𝗵𝗃𝗏𝗏 from 𝗃𝗏. International agencies are calling for the recovery from COVID-19 to be green. Green, resilient, inclusive, and digital. Part of that means a more efficient use of energy, water, waste, and also electric vehicles. Today, we will speak about that. But before that, I will say a few things about the Business Platform for Sustainability. Let me also say, there's a great thing about technology. My laptop, not where I am, I left it somewhere else, but I'm on my phone. Usually you don't have the background, but I'm not sure how to do Zoom on a phone. But in any case, here we are. So, actually, this is a slide from last time. Can we have the next slide, please? Can we have the next slide, please? Yes.
Yes, it's.
So, as I mentioned, we are the Business Platform for Sustainability. Yeah, it's okay. No worries. It's an interactive and informal. You know, the background of my house is informal enough. So let's make it an interactive and informal session where we can all share information and get as much information as we can. We have some great speakers with a lot of experience in their field and in other fields of sustainability. We are honored to have you here, Hans and John. So the Platform for Sustainability, Business Platform for Sustainability, we are an association of businesses, and we used to be called Milieu, environment. But as you know, in 2015, the UN established the Sustainable Development Goals, and we would like to go in that, let's say, that trend. So we are now focusing on all the Sustainable Development Goals. We were established in 2007. Of course, as you know, sustainability has to do with people, planet, and profit. We are a member of the World Business Council for Sustainable Development, a proud member, I should say. Could I have the next slide, please? For many years, from 2007 up to now, what we are doing is building awareness. But today, or this year, or in the future, we'd like to build action. Action in terms of sustainability is important. And why? A few reasons. We wrote 3. It is important for competitiveness. Sustainability can reduce the cost of doing business. Maybe one of the speakers will speak to that later. Clients are demanding sustainability. If you look at booking.com, which we know, the traveling platform, booking.com, they do research almost every year. And this research shows that more than 70% of their travelers are looking for sustainable destinations, not just the destinations, the hotels, the restaurants, the taxis, you know, everything in the destination. But here it comes. Many of them are not finding it. So they are looking for sustainable options and they are not finding it. So there's an opportunity. Suppliers are also looking for sustainable partners. Many countries, most countries, I should say, have a certain quota that the country must achieve with regard to, for instance, the reduction of CO2 emissions. Curacao doesn't quite have that because the Dutch kingdom has it and it will cover all of us. But the suppliers in many countries, in most countries, including in the Dutch kingdom, they must, you know, adjust their emissions so that they comply, so that the country can comply with the goals and the quotas. So they are looking for partners everywhere in the world who are also in that same trend so that they can all achieve the goal together. Otherwise, they are penalized. So it is important for competitiveness. If you are in this sustainability sphere zone, you are not competitive. The second is, I also already mentioned, Globally, we're looking at a COVID-19 recovery that is GRID: green, resilient, inclusive, and digital. And we will speak maybe another time more about resilience and inclusiveness, but today we will speak mostly about green. And number three, for our country, it can affect positively the image of a country. It can create jobs, the jobs of the future, new jobs, and economic growth. So these are the reasons that we must come to action. As you may know, some countries are phasing out traditional vehicles by 2030 to electric vehicles. So it's going fast. Could I have the next slide, please? So yeah, it's animated. So I guess you can go to 3, 4, or 5. Can you click it again? Yeah, click it again. Okay, yes. When we speak about business sustainability, let me say this. It's a rather new area and changing, but there are a few things that we know are established. Business sustainability has to do with the environment, E, climate action, and that's what we're speaking about today, energy, waste, water management, electric mobility, circularity. In Curacao, we also have a group that deals with circularity, circular economy, planting trees. We have several groups planting trees, and appropriate design. And here we mean appropriate design of buildings, appropriate design that fit in the tropical area. On Monday, we had one of our members, one of the BPM members is a architect, 𝗲𝗵𝗵𝗶𝗰𝗵 Architects, and she also spoke to appropriate design for our climate. The second is social. It speaks to a healthy work environment, work-life balance, diversity, equity, and inclusion in your workers in the company. So that's one. It also speaks to good corporate social responsibility. And what we mean by that is that it's not just about your company, it's about your community. It's not about whether you make a profit, but are you helping the community in some way or another? By volunteerism, by donations, and by keeping in mind that, buying local, which creates jobs, local jobs, etc. Then there is governance, and I think Hans will speak to this. It's formal businesses, ethics, fair procurement, avoiding conflicts of interest, good business. Sometimes you hear ESG, ESG, that's the first three, environment, social, governance. You hear ESG strategies. You will hear that more and more often coming in the next few years, but that's what it's referred to. That the company has strategies that are environmentally friendly, socially adept, and good governance. The fourth has to do with reducing the cost of doing business, resource efficiency. We know that 30% of costs in organizations is due to waste. Just waste by making mistakes, by doing things over again, by duplicating things that need not be done, fragmentation, all kinds of waste, things that don't have to be done. In the restaurant business, a lot of food that goes to waste, production that's not used, etc., etc. Now, if you can do that more efficiently, resource efficient, then you're reducing your cost of doing business, but you're also using less natural resources, less financial resources, less human resources. Digitalization, which we've seen a lot of in COVID, is also part of that, because of course, when you digitalize many things, you won't have to you reduce the cost. We're doing this webinar. In other instances, it would have cost us a lot of money to rent a place, a venue, people go there. Now we're all sitting in our own offices. And number 5, I just want to mention the Sustainable Development Goals generally. Buy local, I said already, food security, life on the water, life on land, heritage. Of course, there's many more, but some of these are the ones most appropriate for businesses. Buy local products, also buy from local people who are documented here and pay taxes. Buy local, so the money stays here. Food security, planting food, etc., etc. Life on the water, our corals, life on land, our own forests and mondis and animals, and heritage or cultural heritage or built heritage, etc. Thank you. Next slide, please. So that's all I wanted to say now. We are going to our panelists. Let me say that these companies, members from BPM, that hold an award for minimum sustainability. We call it a minimum sustainability standards. These companies have gone through a process of improving their sustainability, and they will speak to it. And they got a certificate from BPM for having done so. They could also have an ISO certificate, and some people know that. And we were going to have one panelist who has an ISO certificate, but we don't have one. Actually, my company has an ISO certificate. We have an ISO certificate for management consultants. So that means that we and all other ISO certificate holders conduct their business in a certain way. Okay, so Hans, I think the floor is yours.
Okay, you want to skip the next slide? I'll go to my own slide then. Yes, Tamira, thank you for inviting me for this panel. You asked me to share some of our experiences with in regards to sustainability, coping with COVID, what we think is sustainable, and how we bring that into our team and into the company, what it does for us. So I started my slides with just giving you an example on how you should actually get sustainable thinking into your company, and that starts with your mission and vision. If you look at our mission and vision, I'm not going to read them all through, but you can find them on our website, 𝗲𝗵𝗿𝗲𝗵. Actually, your mission and vision tells your team on the direction you're going. And one of the things we really looked at is how can we be sustainable as a business and be into the transition to sustainable energy. And that's mainly because we are more or less an energy provider. But sustainability is one of the things that I believe should be in your mission and vision nowadays. If you don't have that, you probably are looking at the past, and any sustainable business should be looking at the future. One thing I mentioned to Tamira just before we entered this panel, sustainable is much more than just environment. A lot of people look at green and sustainability as one thing. I strongly believe it's not. Sorry, I'm working from home, so you probably hear my dog barking. You should look at sustainability from all perspectives. It's not only looking at waste management, planting trees. I think you should avoid any waste which is not needed. So stop using one-time use plastic, etc. But it's much more than that. You should be looking at the total business. How sustainable is your team? How can you keep your team motivated? And especially in the COVID time right now, that has been quite a challenge. But also, how can you build your financial basis of your business in a sustainable way? I'm not going to go in all the details, but I think it's very important to realize that sustainability is much more than something that we always used to see from Greenpeace, etc. It's much more than that. So I think one thing you should be asking as a company owner is how sustainable is your company during the lockdown we've had, and how resilient are you to coping with COVID? And I'll give you some examples on what we have done to make our team really, how you say that, involved in being sustainable in looking at the future. For one thing, I think building a team is most important. There's not many companies which truly rely on something automatic. Most of the companies around us are built with people, and people need to work together to be successful. So one of the things we try to do always is to keep our team motivated. And one thing we do is do team buildings. listen to your team, see what you can do to get your team motivated in the best way you can. And then, of course, you also have waste management, but not only waste management. We think that doing things alone is not the right way to do it. You should do it together. You should be teaming up with others around you. I always say even your competitor is your partner. Doing things together will bring you further. I always say if you cannot divide, you cannot multiply. So in this case, we actually took a piece of our trash, which is an old canopy of a generator. We converted that into a recycling box for Green Phoenix. We're working together with Green Phoenix to get their base material for their products, which is actually waste everybody wants to get rid of. We got rid of one of our waste items, which is an old iron canopy, which we didn't have any use for anymore. We planted that next to our office, and it's amazed me how much waste is collected there every week. So that's one of the things, and one of the most important things of doing this is not so much see us doing something good for the environment. It's much more working together, achieving goals with partners in the market. Another thing to keep your team together, as some of you know, we have offices here in Curacao, in Aruba, and in St. Martin, and the Caribbean Sea is quite a challenge in bringing teams together. You don't see each other every week. You cannot just drive over or swim to the other side. So one of the big things we've seen happening during Corona is that everybody is forced to work digital. We started doing digital happy hours on Friday. We did digital Dino Fit 2 mornings in the week, starting at 7:30 to 8:30. With one of the personal trainers in front of us, all with teams doing a workout, keeping your body healthy, which is also part of being sustainable. And one of the things we saw is that by working more in a digital way, the Caribbean Sea is not a boundary anymore. We are working much more together with Aruba and St. Martin at this moment through the whole team, instead of just the managers talking to each other. So see the digitalization of COVID, which everybody had to do, as a very positive development into your business. Now, of course, I always say invest in the future and not in the past. This is one of the topics that Tamira put on the list to talk about. These are nice, sexy little electric cars, very affordable, but it's much more than just a car. It's much more than a piece of new equipment. As Tamira is saying, you should be looking at buying local, buy with your local food supplier, team up with your local product supplier, and doing the transition to electrical driving also brings a lot of circularity into our economy, because every liter you pour into your car needs to be imported from outside. Every kilowatt hour you put into your car, you could actually produce on our island. If everybody is driving electric and we do all that kilowatt hour production with wind, solar, waste to energy, whichever green ways of producing energy, will actually avoid us buying fuel outside. Keeps the money on the island. It's good for our economy. So that's a small introduction. I'm not sure, Tamira, in the end, you're probably going to ask some questions to lighten up some stuff, but I don't want to take all John's time. So I'm moving on to John. You can have the floor.
Thank you. If I could just step on 3 things that you said that really struck with me. The first one is adaptation of your website to include the sustainability statements, or the way you work, what your company does with sustainability. I think that's an important thing and an easy thing for us all to do. The second thing that you mentioned, and that I didn't mention, collaboration. Yes, that's very important in a small island, especially because you cannot do everything alone. The scale is very small, and if you collaborate, you can do a lot more, and that's important in a small country. And the third thing that you mentioned, which I would like to repeat, is the digitalization that makes there are no more boundaries in the Caribbean. For us, the countries in economic development, we also always say the countries are separate and they're isolated and fragmented and islands and hard to get to. I mean, that's the language. I work in economic development, so that's the language that are used across the Caribbean. But this digitalization has brought us closer, reduced our cost of doing business, opened up opportunities for training, for capacity building. So you don't have to go somewhere else to learn something new. The people can stay here, learn, and be up to par with what happens in the world. So I think those are three things that we can all do. I hope everyone's followed online courses during the lockdown. So having said that, John, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Tamira. I'm going to share my screen now, hopefully. Find it first. I think this, no, here we go. No. I think this is it. Yes, here we are. Okay, hopefully everybody can see the presentation. Okay, thank you for this opportunity to give you some ideas and tips on recycling and waste management options. I am 𝗂𝗵𝗿𝗃𝗂𝗏. I am an environmental scientist and I manage a department at 𝗖𝘃𝗃𝗃𝗏, and I was also the chairman of BPM the for the previous 7 years. Instead of focusing on what 𝗖𝘃𝗃𝗃𝗏 does for sustainability, I want to make this a more practical, giving you tips on what you can do to reduce your waste and to recycle. As Tamira mentioned, there's about 30% of waste in businesses, so that's a lot of money, that's a lot of extra stuff that we can get rid of. 𝗖𝘃𝗃𝗃𝗏 itself, we have practiced recycling internally. We have ISO 14000, which is environmental certification, and ISO 9000, which is quality certification, and we also have BPM's MSS certifications. So hopefully we can teach you something. So first, let's start off with what is waste management? Well, it includes all the steps. It's not just throwing things out, but it's how you collect things, how you store things, how you transport them, how you process. So it's the entire life cycle. And 𝗖𝘃𝗃𝗃𝗏 is your waste management partner. We can help you with all these steps. So any advice you need, you can come to us. Now, just as anything else, waste management has also evolved over time. For example, we no longer do this, and we no longer dump in the ocean. So of course, we no longer have to do the old things of just throwing waste into our 𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗏s. So what's the importance of proper waste management? Well, first of all, you're legally required to manage and dispose of your waste according to Curacao law. You also have to look at the environmental impact. When your waste is disposed of or recycled in a safe and ethical and responsible manner, it reduces the negative impacts to the environment. For example, less litter, less pollution, less plastic in the ocean, less everything that you're supposed to do with your waste is done correctly. Also, public health. Improper handling of different types of waste can impact public health. We all think of mosquitoes. If you have waste that's collecting water, mosquitoes, you get 𝗖𝗂𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗏, chikungunya. It's also bad for wildlife. We've all seen the pictures of the poor old sea turtle with a straw in his nose. That's also, as Tamira mentioned, very important for your image and branding, as for yourself and for your company. How do you want to be seen by others? Do you want to see someone as who's managing their waste properly, or who's dumping things in nature? It's also for public awareness. If you set a good examples, others will follow you, personal life and in business. Prevention of illegal dumping. There's a lot of illegal dumping on the island. You can hardly take a walk in nature anymore without coming across some sort of waste. A clean island, a clean environment, clean oceans, and clean beaches. We all want that. We're living on a small island, so we don't want to be living in the middle of garbage. And of course, it's very, very important for everyone who's visiting the island, our tourism. People don't want to go on vacation on a dirty island and they won't come back to a dirty island. And as Tumita mentioned, it's also very important for a couple of the SDGs. So what is recycling? We can talk about the 4 R's. To me, the best way to reduce your waste is, of course, not to produce it. An example, I never drink out of my water out of plastic bottles. I always have my water thermos here. We have some of the best water quality in the entire world. Why buy water in bottles? You just have to throw them away after. Of course, you can also reuse things. None of us throw our clothes away at the end of the day. We always reuse them. We wash them. So why not reuse your waste? You can reuse a cardboard box to make that your recycling box. A long time ago, all the drinks on the island, it was Coca-Cola or Pepsi-Cola or beer, was always in a reusable glass bottle. I don't know why we've gone away from that. And of course, you can also recycle. That's, for example, taking a piece of metal and melting it again and make something new from metal. So that's recycling. And you can recover, for example, as Hans mentioned, you can get value from waste by, for example, turning it into energy. Those are the 4 R's that I consider recycling. So let's talk a little bit about recyclables. Recycling is only possible if you separate those things that you can recycle from your other waste streams. And I always say, keep it simple. What you see are pictures of my actual recycling. I just grab some cardboard boxes, separate my plastics. So you can do it at home very easily. And in your office or at your place of work, you can also set up a recycling station like you see right here. Because when these things are separated, they have value. They're no longer waste. So what are some of the benefits of recycling? As I mentioned, there's less litter on our streets if you're recycling. It saves energy and it saves money. For example, if you recycle 1 glass jar, let's say of peas or something, the energy saved from recycling that compared to making a new glass jar or run a light bulb for more than 4 hours. So that's better for the environment. You use less energy and you create less climate change gases. It also saves you money recycling, and I'll show you how in a bit. It conserves natural resources. Just take a look at our own Tafelberg, that where we get all our limestone to make our cement blocks and everything. You know, that's going to be gone one day. But if we recycle all our construction and demolition waste, the life of that Tafelberg will be extended. 𝗖𝗃𝗃𝗏 has 1 landfill right now at 𝗵𝗿𝗄𝗏. There's maybe only 10 years left. We don't want that to fill up quicker than we have to, because where else are we going to put a landfill? No one wants to put a landfill, for example, in the middle of 𝗃𝗏𝗄𝗏 Park. Of course, it's good for the environment. Every time you recycle something, you use less energy, and there's less waste, so it's good for the environment. And it creates jobs and economic activity, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. And personally, when I recycle, I know that I'm part of the solution, not part of the problem, so it makes me feel good. Hopefully, it makes you feel good too. So we're talking about local jobs, circularity. Well, this is one specific example for Curacao. 𝗖𝗃𝗃𝗏 also works together with Green Phoenix, as DNF does. And Green Phoenix is a local social entrepreneur. So they have, their employees are people who have maybe some sort of a light handicap, maybe a bit mentally handicapped, people who perhaps would not be as easily to get a job. So they are taking those people, giving them work, and they're taking products which would have been thrown away, plastic, and they're making new products. You can see some samples of here. They're making plastic lumber. They're making face shields for the COVID time. And all the way on the right, you can see this is plastic that came from a cruise ship, which would have maybe gone to the landfill. So 𝗖𝗃𝗃𝗏𝗃 collects it and brings it to Green Phoenix. So it creates the circular economy that we all want to strive for. So recycling, it also can make and save you money. How many of you have ever thrown a cell phone away, or an old TV, or an old radio? Did you know that you can actually sell those on Curacao? There's a company in Zealandia, Curacao Waste Management. They will pay you for your electronic waste. So you don't have to create a problem, but you can actually make money. Construction and demolition waste, if you bring that to the landfill, it's for free. All other waste at the landfill costs you to dispose of it. It's free to recycle your construction and demolition waste. So you're saving at least 30 guilders a ton. Whoops, sorry, that went a little bit too fast. So how do you know the best way to recycle? It can be confusing. You don't know where to go. What do I have to do? Well, BPM, we created a recycling and waste management options matrix. There's 17 local recyclers on Curacao, which is amazing for such a small island. There's 21 different waste types that you can bring to these recyclers. On this matrix, there's tips for other waste types. And for the first time ever, it's all put in one place on one sheet. So that gives everybody the knowledge to act. You can download this matrix on our website or from our Facebook page. This is what it looks like. Of course, you can't see that very well. So I'm just going to escape out of here for a minute. I'm going to go to the actual matrix. Okay, so basically on the top row, we have all of the companies on Curacao that accept separated wastes for recycling. You can see their names, you can see their contact information, so you can get in contact with them. So there's, as I mentioned, 17 different companies. Then on the left-hand side, you have the description of the waste. For example, plastic number 1, which is PET, such as drink bottles. And then you go across the screen, you can see who accepts those. So 𝗖𝗃𝗃𝗏 accepts them, Green Phoenix accepts them. And then you see what happens with that waste. So Green Phoenix makes products. And we go down. For example, aluminum cans, 𝗖𝗃𝗃𝗏 exports them. Curacao Waste Management exports them. Lead acid batteries, iron and steel. So all of these 21 different types of waste streams that you can recycle all in one place, exactly what you need to do. Over here, it says how you have to present it to these companies. You can drop it off or they pick it up, or you only can drop off or they supply a machine for you. Here is their address, so you can find them. And down here, some other tips which you can do for other waste. For example, reuse or donate furniture, clothing, what you can do with books, websites, and Facebook pages. So all this information in one. So again, it's free to download on bpmcuracao.com or on our Facebook page. There's also on Curacao several drop-off centers. You know, we have one at the landfill 𝗵𝗿𝗄𝗏. It looks like this. There's different containers where you drop off different types of waste that it's separated, electronic waste, glass, aluminum, and then everything that's left over is at the end. There's also 2 recycling drop-off centers, one at the Santa Rosa gas station and one in Fleur de Marie. Those are all from 𝗖𝗃𝗃𝗏. There's other ones that are not from 𝗖𝗃𝗃𝗏, for example, at the Mangosau hypermarket in Zeelandia at Van der Twijl, and one at Dina that we'd also mentioned. There's one at Centrum in Pescadera. So there's several locations where you can bring your waste to recycle. And unfortunately, on Curacao, we don't have, as in some other countries, a separate bin where you put in your recyclables, but that's just a little bit too complicated and too expensive. So you have to bring it yourself. So how to start recycling? Well, make a list of your wastes. Use the matrix that I just mentioned to see which wastes you have that you can recycle. And don't try to do everything at once. Just choose a couple of waste types to separate. Which types do you generate the most of? That's what I would start with. If you have more plastic, or if you have more glass, or if you have more metal, start with those because they make a bigger impact. And keep it simple. Find easy ways to separate your waste. Give everybody in your office a small cardboard box to recycle their paper, for example. Involve your entire family, involve all of your employees, and make it a habit. But the most important thing is to change your mindset, flip the switch in your mind, start separating your waste today, start recycling, because it really is easy. I also want to mention, if we are getting into the panel discussion, I also own an electric car. Imported an electric car myself. I've been driving it for about 1.5 years. So if you have any questions on owning an electric car or how to get an electric car, in my experience, I'm also happy to answer questions about electric vehicles. Thanks for your attention.